When a narcissist realizes you truly don't care anymore, they do something most people never see coming. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why it happens, what it looks like, and why it's honestly one of the most disturbing shifts in human behavior you'll ever witness. Here's the thing nobody tells you about narcissists. You think the scary part is the love bombing. You think the scary part is the gaslighting, the silent treatment, the way they twist every argument until you're the one apologizing for something they did. And yeah, all of that is bad. All of that hurts. But none of it compares to what happens the moment they realize you've actually stopped caring. Not pretending to stop caring. Not taking space so they'll chase you. I mean the real thing. The moment your nervous system stops flinching when their name pops up on your phone. The moment you watch them walk into a room and you feel nothing. That's the moment everything changes. And I want to walk you through this slowly, because if you've lived through it, you already know how strange it gets. And if you haven't yet, you need to be ready, because it's coming, and it will not look how you expect. Let's start with why this moment matters so much to them in the first place. A narcissist doesn't experience you as a separate person with your own inner world. I know that sounds harsh, but stay with me. To them, you are a mirror. You're a source. Psychologists call it narcissistic supply. The constant stream of attention, admiration, jealousy, anger, tears, whatever they can pull out of you, because it confirms that they exist, that they matter, that they have power. It doesn't even matter if the emotion is positive or negative. Rage works just as well as love. Tears work just as well as praise. As long as you're reacting, you're feeding something in them that they cannot feed themselves. So think about what it means, from their perspective, when that supply just stops. It's not like losing a source of income where you can go find another job. This is closer to losing a limb they didn't know they were dependent on. Because somewhere deep down, underneath all the grandiosity, underneath the mask of confidence, there's an emptiness that never got filled. Most researchers who study narcissism point to this fragile, hollow core, a self that was never allowed to develop safely, often because of how they were raised, praised only for performance, punished for vulnerability, taught early on that being loved and being useful were the same thing. So they built an armor, a performance, a version of themselves that looks powerful, magnetic, untouchable. But armor isn't a personality. It's a shield around an absence. And that absence needs to be constantly covered up, constantly fed, constantly reflected back to them through you. Now imagine you're the mirror, and one day, the mirror just turns away. This is where it gets disturbing, because most people assume that when you stop caring about a narcissist, they'll just move on. Find someone else. Shrug it off. And sometimes, on the surface, that's exactly what it looks like. But underneath, something much darker is happening. The first thing you'll usually notice is an escalation before the silence. It's almost like their nervous system panics before their pride does. You'll get a sudden flood of contact after weeks of nothing, random memories, old inside jokes, a message that seems to come from nowhere, dressed up as concern, or nostalgia, or even an apology that feels suspiciously well-timed. This isn't affection. This is a test. They're checking whether the mirror still works, whether one more push will get a reaction. And here's the part that catches people off guard every time. If you don't react, if you genuinely don't feel that old pull anymore, they don't calm down. They escalate again. Because to a narcissist, your indifference isn't peace. It isn't closure. It's a threat. It's proof that the story they've been telling themselves, that they're irreplaceable, unforgettable, too important to lose, might not be true. And a narcissist cannot sit with that possibility. So they push harder. This is usually where you start seeing behavior that feels almost unrecognizable from the person you used to know. Sudden vulnerability that appeared out of nowhere. Stories about how much they've changed. Or on the flip side, and this is the part that really disturbs people, a sudden, aggressive devaluation. Out of nowhere, you're the villain. You're cold. You're heartless. You're the one who ruined everything. It can feel like whiplash, especially if just weeks earlier they were trying to pull you back in with warmth. But it's the same engine driving both behaviors. Warmth didn't work, so now cruelty gets tried instead. Because if they can't get you to want them, Sometimes the fallback is making sure you still feel something, even if that something is pain, even if that something is anger. To them, in a strange, twisted way, your anger is still better than your silence. Your anger still means you're thinking about them. Your silence means you've actually let go. And this is where I need you to really sit with something, because this is the disturbing part I promised you at the start. When a narcissist senses that your indifference is real, not performative, not a phase, not a manipulation tactic of your own, but real, earned, permanent indifference, some of them don't just escalate and then fade away quietly. Some of them shift into something colder, something more calculated. They stop trying to provoke an emotional reaction from you directly, and instead, they start working on your image, your reputation, the people around you, because if they can't get supply from you anymore, they'll try to get it from an audience watching you. They'll tell a version of the story where you're unstable, or cruel, or the one who did the damage. Not necessarily out of some evil master plan sitting there twirling their mustache. It's often more automatic than that, almost reflexive, like a wounded animal lashing out sideways because the direct target is no longer reachable. But automatic doesn't mean harmless. This is often where smear campaigns are born, where mutual friends suddenly start hearing a very different story about what happened between you two, where family members get pulled in, sometimes years after contact has ended. And I want you to notice something important here, because it's the piece most people miss when they're in the middle of it. This entire chain of behavior, the sudden reappearance, the testing, the warmth, the cruelty, the reputation management, none of it is actually about you anymore, not the real you. It's about restoring their sense of control. It's about patching the hole your absence left in their self-image. You became, without ever asking for the role, a character in a story they're still writing about themselves. And the moment you stopped playing that character the way they needed you to, the story had to be rewritten, with or without your consent. But here's what almost nobody talks about, and it's the part I think matters most. There's a very specific window, a short, strange, almost eerie period, right after they realize the supply is truly gone, but before they've fully pivoted to a new source or a new narrative. And in that window, some of them do something that catches even seasoned therapists off guard. It's not rage, it's not begging, it's something quieter, and honestly, something a lot more unsettling once you understand what's actually happening behind it. And that's exactly where we're going to pick things up. That quiet, unsettling thing, it's mirroring your peace, not mimicking it to mock you, mirroring it to survive. See, once a narcissist exhausts the loud tactics, the sudden warmth, the sudden cruelty, the triangulation, the image control, and none of it pulls you back into the reaction they need, something strange happens in that narrow window. They go still. And I don't mean they disappear completely. I mean they start performing calm, performing growth, performing the exact version of healed that they think will finally get past your defenses, because loud tactics failed and quiet ones haven't been tried yet. You'll see it in the language. Suddenly they're talking about therapy, even if they walked out after one session. Suddenly they're using words like boundaries and self-work and they've done a lot of reflecting. It sounds right. It sounds like the growth you always wished they'd have. And that's exactly what makes it so disorienting. Because for years you wanted this version of them. You begged for this version of them. And now here it is, showing up at the exact moment you finally stopped needing it to. The timing isn't a coincidence. It's a strategy, even if they'd never admit that to themselves. Because deep down, the goal hasn't changed. The goal is still to get back inside your reaction. It's just wearing a gentler costume this time. And here's where it gets even more disturbing. Because this phase doesn't just target you directly. It targets your certainty. It's designed, consciously or not, to make you doubt the very thing that finally set you free. Your indifference. You'll catch yourself thinking, wait, what if they really have changed? What if I'm the one being cold now? What if I'm the villain in this version of the story? And that seed of doubt is exactly what they need. Because a narcissist doesn't need you to come all the way back. They just need you to hesitate. Hesitation is a crack, and a crack is enough to slip a hand back through. This is why so many people describe going no contact as feeling less like slamming a door and more like holding it shut against something that keeps testing the handle. Now, let's talk about what happens on the other end of that window. Because not every narcissist stays in the soft, performative phase. For some, especially the more overtly grandiose ones, that quiet period is brief, almost like a held breath, and what comes after is a full pivot to devaluation and replacement. This is where you'll hear about the eerily fast new relationship, the new best friend, the new business partner who gets showered with the exact same admiration and attention you used to get in the early days. From the outside, people often say, "Wow, they moved on so fast. They must not have cared about you at all." But it's not that simple, and honestly, that assumption misses the disturbing part entirely. It's not that they didn't care. It's that caring, for a narcissist, was never separate from needing. The moment the needing stopped being satisfied by you, the caring didn't grieve. It just relocated. Almost like a plant being repotted. Same root system, same hunger for light, just pointed at a different window now. And this is honestly one of the hardest things for people to accept when they're for healing from this kind of relationship. So I want to say it clearly. Their fast replacement of you is not proof that what you experienced wasn't real. It's proof that what they were doing was never really about you being irreplaceable. It was about the role being filled. You held that role for a while. Someone else is holding it now. That's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of a system that was broken long before you ever walked into it. So what does all of this mean for you, if you're the one who's finally reached that place of not caring? First, understand that reaching real indifference is not something a narcissist can talk you out of, no matter how convincing the performance gets. The version of them showing up asking for a second chance is not the same as a person who has genuinely done the internal work required to change deeply ingrained patterns. That kind of change, when it does happen, takes years of consistent, unglamorous effort, usually far away from the person they hurt, not aimed at winning them back. If the growth only appears when it's useful for regaining access to you, it's not growth. It's a new script. Second, expect the testing to come in waves, not a single moment. You might get the warm wave, then months of silence, then the cruel wave, where suddenly you're the reason everything fell apart, then more silence, then maybe the performative growth wave. Each wave will feel different, and each one is designed to catch you at a different level of vulnerability, whether that's loneliness, guilt, nostalgia, or plain old curiosity. Recognizing the pattern doesn't mean you'll never feel a pull. It means when you do feel that pull, you'll understand exactly what it is, instead of mistaking it for meaning. And third, and this is the part I really want to leave you with, the fact that there's redoing all of this, the testing, the smearing, the mirroring, the eerie calm performance, is actually confirmation that you're not imagining what you went through. People who are genuinely fine with losing you don't need to run elaborate campaigns to get a reaction out of you. They just leave. The intensity of what they're doing now is directly proportional to how much they've lost. Not in love, but in supply, in control, in the story where they were the main character and you were supposed to stay in your assigned role forever. Your silence broke that story. That's why it's disturbing to them. And honestly, that's why it's so powerful for you. If you've lived through any version of what we just walked through, the sudden reappearance, the whiplash between warmth and cruelty, the smear campaigns, the eerie calm phase, I want you to know that what you're feeling has a name, it has a pattern, and it has an end point. It ends with you not needing them to confirm any of it happened. It ends with you trusting what you lived, even when they rewrite it. And it ends with the quiet, almost anticlimactic realization that the scariest, most disturbing thing they can do is nothing at all compared to the peace you built without them. If this resonated with you, stay close, because there's a lot more we need to talk about. The patterns, the recovery, the parts of this no one else is saying out loud. And if you're going through this right now, you're not overreacting, and you're not alone in it.